each week I sit down and meditate on what might be the most appropriate way to view the astrology that is transpiring for the week. Some might be inclined to just solely look at what planets are talking to one another. And I do definitely consider this. But I find it a substantial challenge to contain just those planetary conversations with one another to that environment, because the effects that the planetary energies can have on life, the everyday experiences of what we are going through living here on planet Earth, touch a lot of varying perspectives. Like when I looked at the planets for this week and who was playing with who and what version, I say, well, we got 5 aspects this week. Venus enters Aries. That's probably a biggie, since Venus going through Pisces has it's spelled out a value technique able to be utilized in locating what source means to us. The sun makes a couple of aspects this week. One is a sextile with Mars from Taurus to Pisces. The other, a sextile, is a conjunction with Uranus of the sun in Pisces. 2 more sextiles that happened this week are Jupiter forming a sextile with Pluto from Pisces to Capricorn, and Mercury forming a sextile with that Venus that we began this consideration with right now. Since we've got 3 sextiles in the mix, it will be good to understand what that 60-degree aspect can bring into any equation. When planets are 60 degrees apart, it means that the elements of the 2 signs involved are going to actually work relatively well together. Like in this case, Earth, Taurus, and water, Pisces. These elements actually function, they're really challenged with one another, and there's a kind of a symbiotic relationship between them that sets in motion an empowerment through synthesis, and the fact that those energies, those elements are and when we look at the planets that are in those signs, we can say that both planets are infusing each other with new ideas and energy. And the reason that they can do that is because they're in elements that are talking cohesively with one another, as opposed to like fire and water. The fire and water elements they don't see eye to eye on things. I would also add that the Venus signature that begins this week as it moves from Pisces into Aries it is going to, well, first of all, it's Venus. It's the ruler of Taurus, which is where the sun is right now, as well as Libra, which is not really one of the signs that's easily being able to draw it into the mix. It is in the mix because whenever Venus is involved in anything, the interaction that we have with other people is relevant. But getting to the root understanding of what Venus stands for, and particularly from the Taurus perspective, I think we need to consider valuation. What is something worth? On the planet where we're incarnate right now as soul beings, the elements. In a way, there are elements that are unique to places. Like the scene behind me is the melting glaciers in an area of Iceland. Clean, clear, fresh water in abundance. Now picture, if you will, Bedouins traversing the Kalahari Desert. This vision of the melting glaciers in Iceland would be like an alien thought to them. You know, this amount of water churning with such force in very clear, drinkable fashion. That's like a hallucination when you're out in the desert where there's no water for hundreds of miles in any direction. So valuation. In this place, Iceland, the value of water might not be considered as high as it would be in the Kalahari Desert, where the value of water there is priceless. Part of the reason that I'm bringing up this valuation factor is because of the season of Taurus that we're in right now, which asks us very particularly to place a value on things. You know, it's even as I say that and think into the concept of setting an economic value on things, I get a deep angst in my soul when I consider the process of almost everything on planet Earth being interpreted by us human beings as having an economic value only. And Here's another valuation consideration to look at. There's some people sitting in a high-end restaurant. They've ordered their food and they eat a little bit of this and a little bit of that because they weren't really that hungry to begin with, and basically send the rest back. I mean, when they're done with their meal, they pay for it and they leave. Now, in another scenario, there are people living in ghettos that may not have eaten in several days. And the valuation of that same food that money was paid for in that high-end restaurant is unattainable from the economic perspective. Yet the value of what that food means to the person in the ghetto is life supporting. It can't be put solely in economic terms. It's the difference between life and death in many circumstances. The imbalance in economic stratification of lifestyles that exist on planet Earth currently needs to be considered. There's a lot of ways that I could go with that. But because we're in Taurus, looking at that imbalance in what things are worth to different levels of humanity is on the table. Deep pondering, sending me on tangential trajectories. Let's go back to the astrology. Venus shifting out of Pisces, where it has been exalted, where it's always exalted, as you know, which means that it's overtly comfortable to find itself in the realm of Pisces. It is, it's invited to the party, so to speak. And then today, Monday the 2nd, Venus goes into Aries, where it is in a fire sign, opposite from Libra, one of the signs that it rules, and right next door to Taurus, the other sign that it has rulership with. Being opposite to a sign that it rules, from the Hellenistic perspective, says that it is in its detriment. And detriment is not the kind of experience where something might jump up and down with joy and say, "Woo, I'm in detriment." It means that the signature of the energy that is available for Venus, in this case, to draw upon is opposed to the arena where it is very comfortable. So detriment is kind of like, see it from the perspective of what water means to the Kalahari desert traveler versus what water means to someone in or near the melting glaciers of Iceland. The detriment is that what does water mean to someone in the Kalahari? It's not comfortable, and it's something that needs to basically be protected, saved in any way that you can, so that survival will be the direction that you're going in. So this Venus in Aries is it's so very different than the Pisces realm that it's just come out of. You can almost see a substantial day-night type of shift of energy that's come out of this incredibly moist environment into a dry, hot Aryan environment. There's energy in Aries to initiate things. There's an impulse to strike forth and do something. However, Venus there is likely just a bit challenged for discovering comfort in the realm of valuation. What is this worth versus what is that worth? And in Aries, Venus is kind of saying, that's a tough call, and the tough call is the same as considering the very wet Icelandic version versus the Kalahari expression of life. It's the dichotomy there is, it's so enormous that Venus is like, here I am. I'm now in a fire sign that's hot and dry. And fire signs, they're about breaking connections. They're not about making connections. If you think about Libra, which is where Venus is in rulership, it's about making connections with others. So Venus is not comfortable. And for the next several weeks, as Venus goes through Aries, this basic energy is being played into the realm of Taurus, where Venus is the ruler, and the sun is now traveling. So if we consider from the Taurian perspective, the value of life that is on the table right now, what aspects of our connection to Mother Earth, Taurus, are we going to be willing to set aside for a time in order that we might discover options on how best to play that valuation game? I think that's a good way to put it. The lack of comfort that Venus is experiencing as it goes through Aries brings possibly some angst into matters that we encounter as we go through life and consider what this thing or what that thing might actually be worth to us. And it's interesting because even as I say to us, I go, who are the us? And might the water be of, more value to someone in the Kalahari? Likely. So the us it's proprietary. So with our dance through Taurus currently, we might want to specifically weigh out what it is that we are utilizing our resources for. And don't think of it just solely on a personal basis. Yes, Venus in Aries may want to readily do that. I am more important than anybody else. Aries. I am the meaning of life. Aries. Taurus. We are a part of Mother Earth and this planet that we live on. And might there be some value that we're not exactly perceiving efficiently in what it is that we have to share while here? Oh yeah, sharing can be seen in a proprietary fashion as well. The person with copious quantities of money, their idea of sharing is not going to be the same as the person who is living in the ghetto. Yet, we're still all on this same planet. And it is the same resources of this planet that are there for all of us to consider appropriate use of. Let's look at another aspect. The Sun and Mars, they move into this sextile aspect, and they basically will be within that 1 degree sextile aspect. And I'm using it a very tight, I always use very tight aspects when I'm talking about here, but it actually can extend out further on either side of that tight 1 degree aspect. And I'm using the tight, and even in using the tight, the Sun and the Mars are going to be in this sextile aspect until the 11th of May. So you can kind of picture that this is a signature that's going to be hanging with us for, a while. So let's figure this. Sun, that vital energy that is the reason why life exists on planet Earth. Dancing with Mars, which is in Pisces in this sextile thing, that dynamic, push kind of Mars energy, still playing the Piscean tunes of imagination and dreams, and trying to expand our awareness of what it means to be in connection with Source. It is Aries, though. It is Mars, which is the ruler of Aries and Scorpio, which is where the next eclipse is going to be, as a full moon eclipse or lunar eclipse, but not for a couple of weeks. Mars is action and energy. The Sun is the core of the solar system. It is vitality. And so the sextile, the aspect that's happening between these two, from Taurus to Pisces, it can be played it can be played several ways. I'm going to give you a version that seems to be more in the inclination of what my soul senses as appropriate. There are inappropriate ways to play anything, but that the vitality of being a reservoir of the substance of planet Earth. I talk about this all the time. This vehicle that we are privileged to utilize as our soul vehicle while we're here on planet Earth is made up of all the elements of this Earth. We and the planet Earth are one energetically, and we borrow from planet Earth the elements required to make a body for a season, and then we return it to Mother Earth. Mars in Pisces, energizing the capacity to do the dance with Source, to inspire our dreams, to write poetry, create music and song. Might it be an appropriate time to sing songs to Mother Earth? Might there be some benefit in being able to learn how to listen as the natural elements of life respond to those songs and poetry that we present to it? Might the muses be excited to participate in the creation of that kind of life, to stir the energy cycle of experience where creation is being enhanced in each moment, to participate together in recognizing the element of Source that is Mother Earth, that is us, that is the inspiration to our dreams and songs. This is wonderful stuff to tune into. We need more of it. Sun and Mars speaking to each other, saying, kick out the jams, kick up the energy, play the music and dance. That was that aspect basically, which forms exactly on Tuesday this week, is then shifted. Well, it stays in vogue, but the next aspect on Wednesday this week is the sun coming into conjunction with Uranus. Keep your seatbelts fastened. And maybe don't try to overtly contain the vitality of what is being inspired by that Mars Sun sextile that is inviting us to participate in the song of life. Uranus dancing with the sun. Keep your feet light. Don't try to, or even if you do, come up with a pre-thought as to how things could, would, or should develop. It's highly likely that Uranus is going to shake that reality rather substantially to make sure that you aren't becoming too stuck in the quagmire of repetitive thoughts, repetitive actions, those kinds of experiences that, you've done 100 times, 1,000 times. And Uranus comes along and says, hey, let's do something different. I'm going to throw a little wrench into the monkey works, or is that a monkey wrench into the works? Whatever it is, expect the unexpected. And that's even as you say the term expect the unexpected, how can you expect the unexpected? Perhaps we might just keep our antenna up. The sun, that intense solar orb, vitally inspiring us to really dance and delight in what it means to be a part of Mother Earth, is likely to receive a call. Musical notes on the winds of life that beckon us into an area that we really had no idea might be part of our considerations. Uranus, Prometheus, the great awakener, is sounding the tone. Can you hear it? Can you feel it? Are you ready for it? Because it's here all the time, if you want to perceive it. Also, on Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, on Wednesday, Jupiter forms a sextile from Pisces to Pluto retrograde up in Capricorn. Well, we already know that the elements, earth and water, are going to be able to actually converse with one another. Jupiter's energy is always expansion, trying to find a way to grow whatever it touches. And what it's touching at this particular time on Wednesday is it's touching Pluto. So, and Pluto's in, at 28 degrees of Capricorn in the final degrees, but it's retrograde. It's going to go back, 1.5, 2 degrees before it turns direct again. And so the arena of hopeful, appropriate leadership in organizations and governments and businesses that are being challenged by the Pluto archetype, which is kind of a take no prisoners perspective of transmutational change, in the sense that if things have become stagnant, realized or not, Pluto says, I'm going to challenge what it is that you're holding as a direction to push in. And how I'm going to challenge it is I'm going to expose an undercurrent that is a part of this style of rulership that is being used that may not be as well observed by those under this rulership style. So if there are hidden factors that the majority are unaware of, as Pluto, it is my job to say, hey, look what I found. It was just hiding down underneath here. Why aren't you guys in the rulership positions saying something about this? You know, and because you aren't, I am still going to expose it, bring it into the light, give it some oxygen that it hasn't been receiving for, oh, who knows how long. And Jupiter, you know, the planet of growth and expansion, is down there in Pisces saying, I absolutely give you, Pluto, permission to go for it. And it's a sextile. You know, there's an energetic infusing that each of these planets are giving to each other, you know, so that new ideas and energy can, you know, erupt to the surface. You know, that's exciting kind of energy to realize that, you know, if, you know, and I use that word not even cautiously, there might be factors in play that those in positions of control, seeming control, have been foisting upon us for who knows how long, are going to be able to continue in that once some of the not so obvious factors that they have been keeping from us, the general masses, are brought up. It's composting time, not so much the composting of those hidden ideas, but the composting of the foundation that was hiding them from us, so that something new can have nutrients and support to grow in support of those factors that are overtly relevant that we weren't aware of up until Pluto and Jupiter got together and said, we're going to stir the pot just a little bit more vigorously. Yes, vigor. Jupiter is vigor. On Thursday, Mercury, which is essentially moving very, very slow because at the beginning of next week, it's going to station and go retrograde, is at the beginning of Gemini, the sign where it's saying, I'm ready to do the happy dance. And Venus, which has, you know, entered those early degrees of Aries, are forming a sextile. That means that they're comparing notes. You know, Venus's notes right now are kind of like, help me, Mercury. I'm trying to get this message out that I'm still, you know, have lingering from my season in Pisces. And the Aries energy is, you know, it's kind of like it's waffling. And I say it's waffling because Mars, the ruler of Aries, is still in Pisces. So there's still a, you know, a bookmark or a foothold in that deep Piscean realm that is, you know, it's energetic. it's alive. It's still stirring that pot. And then it's also the Mars is moving up on that Jupiter, going to inspire it to be even bigger than it normally is. And Gemini, where Mercury is coming really slowly to the point where next week it's going to go retrograde, is when a planet stations to go retrograde or comes even close to that, it starts to slow down. And while Mercury is one of the faster planets in the solar system, it's got that quicksilver lightning kind of energy. Here's the trickster. Here's the creative spokesman that can just rattle words off at the drop of a hat. And stuff is when that planet Mercury is being slowed down, the signature of what Mercury stands for, and in this case, in the sign that it has strong affinity for, which is Gemini, the thoughts, the mental capacities that we have, the speech we use being slowed down. It's kind of like an outer planet that moves really slow, and it gives it time to develop character and substance. And so as this Mercury comes slower and slower, because it's moving really slow on whatever day this was, on the 5th, when Venus moves into sextile with it. Now I'm saying the Venus is moving into sextile because it's moving faster than Mercury is right on that particular day. Actually for a while, because Mercury's going to go backwards. And how much assistance is where Mercury's sitting going to be providing to Venus as they compare notes? I just looked really quickly at the Sabian symbol for where Mercury is, and it says, holly and mistletoe reawaken old memories of Christmas, a longing for the pre-intellectual state of consciousness. And just for giggles, we'll look at the Venus signature as well. Two lovers strolling on a secluded walk. The progressive polarization of energies needed for fulfilling one's life function. So we shuffle, this is on the 5th, we shuffle those energies together to see what is going to develop here. Venus is, its Sabian symbol is about the experience of shared energy one with another. Mercury's factors have to do with, memories of good times, hopefully good times, where we enjoyed the element of surprise also, hopefully. And so might there be avenues where when we connect with one another, things may transpire that, while we may hope for, may not expect. So be delighted as they show up in a level of new awareness. And I say this particularly because in each moment, we are born anew. That means we are not the same people we were the moment before. And with Venus and Mercury coming together, might our thoughts be inspired? Might the interaction we have with somebody else be energized by the Aryan perspective, driven by that Mars Piscean side that says, go deep, and by words that may spring from our tongue that we hadn't anticipated. Well, we didn't even look at the chart this week. I had it available, but I decided to go a different direction. So this might be a little bit shorter than usual, but it is what it is. Was what it was, and will be what it will be. So thank you for the dance, the willingness to utilize your muses and make new music this week. Actually, make new music always. The world needs more. Yes, more. And the muses are dancing with accolades at that thought. Please invite us to the party. Have a good week.